Hi, welcome to mediatorpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about mediation, negotiation, and collaboration. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a valuation expert and mediator in St. Louis, Missouri. I actually specialize in divorce and partner disputes. But today we'll discuss divorce mediation and parenting plans or child custody with Michelle Weinberg. Michelle's a licensed marriage and family therapist with over 20 years of experience, but now focuses her practice specifically and solely on divorce mediation in New Jersey. In 2011, she co-founded Westfield Mediation with an attorney, Randy Albert, and she's also a member of the New Jersey Association of Professional Mediators and volunteers at several organizations in her spare time. We are so grateful and happy to have you, Michelle. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
But there is a concept called nesting.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about this, because this leads us to some of the creativity in mediation. This might not be a thing that you know about, but a mediator could talk to you about, unique ways of looking at the same issue.
Sure. So nesting is a parenting plan where the children remain in the marital home and the parents either get one apartment or two apartments or other places to live on their where they go on their non-parenting time. Typically nesting involves a second apartment, let's say, and both parents go to that second apartment during their non-parenting time. So let's say you do a week on, a week off of parenting. So on your non-week of parenting, you're living in the apartment, and then your co-parent lives in the apartment on the following week when you go back to the house. So there's always one parent in the marital home and one parent in the second apartment. And it's usually, a small place because the kids don't go to that apartment. The kids are always in the marital home, and the parents rotate in and out of that second apartment to the marital home.
Yeah. And what it does is shift a little bit of the, because in a lot of divorces, we're like, okay, kids pack up every 4 days, every 3 days, and shift to another household. This is where the kids stay in the household and the parents actually shift.
Yes.
And I've seen this work very successfully. It's usually a short-term situation. Sometimes getting divorced is a process, 6 months to a year to longer if you go litigation. But it is a good option. Another thing, additional tips maybe for parents is that if you have teenagers, especially teenage girls, you need to have, or even like kids in general, like they have their favorite hoodie, they have their favorite shoes, they have their favorite whatever. And I know this sounds crazy, but I've encouraged some parents to get two of things. If it's really important, if it's a curling iron that they love, get two. Just have one at each place, because we're forcing them to pack up everything that they love and then miss it if they forget. And what do kids do? Forget every time. What are some other tips or ideas that you have for parents to, or concepts for them to think about when they're coming up with a parenting plan? Maybe that they wouldn't think about normally.
So a lot of times the parenting plan also goes hand in hand with your financial situation. So are you keeping the marital home? Are you both getting new residences? Can you afford a second apartment to do the nesting if you so choose? So it's not only parenting plan in isolation. You do have to consider the financial piece of it as well. A lot of times people want to keep the marital home for the kids and maybe have, a second home that the kids do sort of have two homes now. But it's not very realistic to afford the marital home. So they have to think about that, even with best intentions. And both parents agree that they want the kids to stay in the marital home. It might not be an option. So they do have to come up with some ideas, but also look realistically at what can they afford to implement. So sometimes people have to move back home with grandparents or sisters, brothers, cousins, whatever it may be. So you have to think of that as an option. Getting a roommate to come in if you do want to live in the marital home, but you might need that extra financial support. There's lots of issues that you have to see what works for your situation. Sometimes parents keep the marital home, but the second parent moves to a town that maybe is a few towns away that's a little less expensive, but the kids can still stay in their marital home and go to that school. So living in the other town doesn't affect them that much, but it's more affordable for the parents to do that, the co-parents. So it's really hand in hand, the options, the parenting plan options and the financial options.
Yeah, and I think that that's when we've seen nesting really work, when you either have a school district you have to stay into, or, the schools, because sometimes it is like, what are the kids accustomed to? If one parent is going to have the fancy house with the pool and the trampoline, and then the other parent is an apartment, and, I don't even get my own bedroom, that dichotomy is what we're trying to prevent in some capacity, or the perception of it, but it doesn't mean that it's always possible. It really means, like, your situation, we're trying to come up with, like, what's the best for everybody in the situation, or what's the best alternative, right? Because if you keep one house in the district, what happens if you can't afford that house in the future? You're still going to have, like, even if anything, coming up with a way to talk about these things in the future. I've seen couples go back to their mediator in the
Yes.
future,
Sure.
so 5 years down the line, you go and say, "Oh man, now we can't figure out this." Odds are you can go back to that same mediator and say, "We just want to work with you for a few hours and, like, come up with a new plan, adjust it, agree to it," something like that. And that's usually a good place, because those people, again, are just trying to help you facilitate the conversation,
Yeah,
right?
it's often included. It's pretty common now to include that clause in a divorce agreement, that you'll try mediation before immediately going back to court about an issue. So
Mhm.
now we often do see, not necessarily people that we've helped divorce, but other, maybe they litigated, but in their divorce agreement, it says that they have to come to mediation first. So they come to us to try to resolve any post-divorce issues that may pop up.
Mhm.